Hey guys, North Texas Gun Noob here again, and today I'm going to go over why the Beretta M9 is my go-to handgun. So why did I choose the Beretta M9? I basically just liked the way it looked. Um, when I was a little kid, I saw this gun in games. I think the last game I remember playing, I think it was Resident Evil 3 on, I think it was the first PlayStation. Uh, Anyways, the Beretta M9 was one of the very first handguns your character got in the game, and I just liked the way it looked back then, and I still like the way it looks now. It's just something that I've remembered for 15 years. I think about 15 years ago is when I started playing that game. Anyways, the M9 has shown up in other video games throughout the years, and I always just like the way it looks. So looks aside, why is the Beretta M9 my current favorite and go-to handgun? So fast forward to about a year and a half ago, I was in the market for a new handgun. My budget was around $500 to a little over $600, and after reading some reviews about the M9 and a couple other pistols that may have been a new choice for me, I went into a local Academy sporting goods store, and after looking around and making a couple decisions, this is the handgun that came out on top. And the reasons are in no particular order, so I guess I'll go ahead and start with the grip. I have big, bony hands, and the M9 just fits them perfectly. As you can see, I can get my entire right hand completely around the grip and still have a little bit of space from the very bottom of the grip. And as for the pattern or checkering on the grip, it's basically like tiny little pyramids. I'm not sure if that's the best word to describe it as, but to sum up, the grip isn't slippery or completely smooth to where my hand feels like it'll slip off the gun. So yeah, this pyramid checkering really grips to my hand when I'm firing, and it doesn't feel like I'm going to lose control of it by letting the gun slip out of my hand. And then let's, I guess, go ahead and look at the ergonomics of the controls of the handgun. Here is your slide release lever, and here is your safety / decocker. Without red is safe, and with red is fire. And both of these levers can be manipulated with my thumb. I don't really have to reach around or anything, so that's another positive thing about the handgun. The controls are all within reach with just one hand. And of course your magazine release lever is just right here. Again, I can easily reach it with my thumb. It's basically where most all other semi-automatic handgun magazine release buttons are, so yeah. And also one more thing to point out about the safety / decocker. If you're a lefty, it is also ambidextrous, but I'm a righty, so that really has no effect on me. And if you are a lefty, you won't have the slide release lever on the other side. So let's talk about the weight of the handgun. The M9 weighs about 34 ounces unloaded, so it's a bit heavy. It does help with recoil, but well, the 9mm round doesn't really have much recoil at all. But I like the weight. It's all this steel on there. It feels like a really heavy-duty gun, and it is. And then another feature I really like is the open top slide design. So I've had about 4,000 rounds through this M9 in the past year and a half, and I have not had a single stovepipe. And most of the ammo I shoot through this is the Steelcase Tula or Monarch. Basically all the cheap stuff coming from overseas. So that is a pretty neat design, and it's really cool. It's worked very well for me. Now onto the iron sights of the handgun. These are the factory iron sights that came with the gun when I bought it. They are the 2-dot slash stacking the snowman, or I think there's a couple other names for these sights. Anyways, there's the back sight and there's the front sight. My camera can only focus on one side at a time. But well, long story short, the second handgun I ever bought was the SIG 2022, and it had the same style of sights, the same 2-dot sights, and I shot that a bunch before I bought the M9, and I was just really familiar with the sights, so I do like the 2-dot sights. And next, let's just go to the ease of disassembly. Drop the magazine, make sure the gun is unloaded, and then press this button in while simultaneously pulling down this lever. Take the slide off, take out the recoil spring and guide rod, and then just take out the barrel. Easy as that, and well, most modern handguns are basically super simple to take apart too, but this is just showing how easy the M9 disassembly is. Reassembly is super easy too, basically just the reverse order. Just go ahead and put your guide rod and recoil spring together, set it aside, then grab your slide, grab your barrel, put them together, then grab your recoil spring and guide rod, put it back in, and then put the slide back on the gun, pull it back a little bit, flip the little lever up, and it is reassembled. And also, one other neat little thing I like about the M9 is the smoothness of the slide. It is by far one of the smoothest slides on any of the handguns I own. Now let's talk about double action, single action. I don't really ever shoot the M9 in double action. I always have it in single action whenever I'm at the range. I don't like the double action because the trigger pull is so long and heavy. However, when the gun is in single action, it is phenomenal. The trigger is amazing. There's very little uptake, and when I hit the resistance right here, I believe it's only about 4 pounds until the trigger breaks, and it breaks instantly. One thing I don't really like about some single action guns is there's some creep after you hit the resistance part in single action on the trigger. Say, for example, I have a Makarov, and when I hit the resistance, the trigger doesn't instantly break. There's still a lot of creep left until the trigger actually breaks, and I'm not a big fan of that. I like it when my triggers just cleanly and instantly break, just simple like that. And just to illustrate what I'm talking about, I brought out my Makarov, and the gun is in single action, and well, here's the trigger. I pull, it uptakes to about right there, and I feel resistance. And if this was the Beretta M9, if I gave it just a couple extra more pounds of force, the trigger would instantly break. However, the Makarov does not do that. So instead of instantly breaking, I give it some force, and it's creeping back, and then it finally breaks. I'm not a big fan of that. When I'm at the range and I have to deal with that little bit of extra creep after I hit the resistance, it just throws me way off. Eventually I will learn how to better manage that, but for this video, the Beretta M9 trigger is vastly superior to these kinds of triggers. Now let's talk about reliability. As I've already said, I have about 4,000 rounds through this gun. Most of it has been the steel case stuff. On the main two types of ammo I've run through it are the Monarch on the top and the Tula on the bottom. and out of those 4,000 rounds, I've had only about like 1 or 2 light primer strikes. Everything else has been flawless. I've had no failures to feed and no stovepipes or failures to eject, so the reliability on this gun is superb. And if anyone's wondering why I shoot all this steel case ammo, it's because it's cheap. It's good enough for me for typical range use. And when I'm talking about reliability, I mean just regular range use. I'm not a big like torture tester of guns or anything. I don't throw them around in mud or anything. I'm just a typical guy that takes his guns to the range. So that's where my reliability views are coming from. Now let's talk about magazines. There are a lot of magazines out there. If you're looking for a brand new magazine from either Beretta or like say Metgar, you're running between like $30 and $40. However, there are some surplus GI magazines. I don't have any of those at the moment, but you will be able to find some surplus GI M9 magazines at gun shows, and they can only be like $10. I think I've seen them as low as $5 in some places. So there are plenty of magazines out there, so you won't have to run around trying to search for one. And I guess that wraps it up. That's all I can think of at the moment as why this is my favorite handgun I currently own and why it's my go-to handgun. And to sum up, the gun fits my hand like a glove. The grips are perfect for me. The single action trigger is phenomenal. The double action, however, isn't really good at all. Then again, I don't really like shooting double action in general. Magazines are widely available. I'm already very familiar with the 2-dot sights, or stacking the snowman, whatever you want to call them. Takedown and reassembly is super easy. The gun has been basically flawless in reliability, and well, that's about it. And the gun looks cool too. As I said, seeing it in video games from when I was a little kid and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's why I like the Beretta M9. It's my favorite handgun that I currently own.